today, arthritis reversal and brain health. You can't do one without the other. Everything has to do with the brain. The brain controls and coordinates every function. So we're going to look at how the joints work. And when you see anybody 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, and they're walking and moving slow, that's slow brain. If you see teenagers or young people toe walking, that's brain damage. Why? Because all the joints we have, and this is a good example of a joint, two bones coming together, surrounded by a joint capsule, and that joint capsule is filled with a fluid that's a superfiltrate blood. So we do blood analysis, live blood cell on everybody, because if the blood is thick, if you're in a stressed state, the body can't produce the synovial fluid, so all the joints get stiff. So what's one of the signs of people with anxiety and stress? Stiff joints in the morning, because the blood can't do its job, because the blood cells should be separate so they hold oxygen. Now, on this joint, you have sensors on the joint that tell your brain, is your body straight? Is the joint straight or is it bent? So all of this sensory input is huge. And what activity do we give to every patient after the adjustments? Cross-crawl exercises. Why? Because we're utilizing the joint sensors, and you have sensors in the tendon called Golgi tendon organs. You have sensors in the joint called mechanoreceptors. You have sensors in the muscle called muscle spindles. So there's a huge amount of sensory input from the movements. And so this is why when you're looking at a mall and you see somebody walking crooked or they're walking asymmetrically, that has to do with their brain. So this is why if you're walking in a mall, look at how you're walking. Make sure you're walking symmetrically. If you're working out at a gym, never do an exercise where your arms are straight and then you're bending. That's the worst type of exercise you can do. Because when your arms are straight, these actin and myosin filaments that make up the muscle are stretched. Nobody in nature is going to pick up a weight like this. So this is why when we're talking about exercising for brain, we start and stop where the muscle is still contracted. And then you can do this and that'll get some brain function. If you alternate where one goes up and one goes down and you're stopping at the same area, that's fantastic. That's so much better for brain function. And it's also going to identify abnormal brain function if you're doing this and one is coming up higher than the other side. So this is why we have doctors to tell people every time, yeah, because it has to be done. And then what else has to be done? The breathing at the same time. So if you're doing this exercise correctly, you're breathing in one, out, in, out. So you're looking at this is moving 90 degrees. It's fantastic and moving symmetrical. If you see one side going up higher than the other, that's alternate in the brain. So this is why every adjustment we do is to change the brain. Because when you're looking at anxiety, stress, depression, impulse control, those are all features of the frontal lobe. When you're looking at the limbic, which is composed of the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the cingulate gyrus, I mean, tons of structures in this area that respond to your emotion or perception of the environment. But that hypothalamus gets its input from the position and motion of the vertebrae. So movement is directly connected to brain function. This is why when you see people who are walking symmetrically, that means they have symmetrical brain function. When we're checking people, we're looking for symmetry on either side of the spine because you don't have conscious control of those muscles. So everything, even though we're checking the muscles, joints, how all of that works, we're literally checking the brain. Like I just had one patient this morning said, yeah, I have this muscle spasm, but it's only a muscle. Really? Has anyone in here ever seen a muscle spasm on its own? You mean a steak never jumped off your plate and ran around the muscles cannot react on their own. It's impossible. Okay? So something has to control the tone of that muscle. And that has to do with the sensory component of the body. So this is why it is never a muscle problem. In particular, when we're looking at the muscles run down either side of the spine, it's always the brain. So when you look at this, you reverse arthritis, and to help brain function, all these joints are fluid filled. So you need healthy blood. That brain burns 90% of the body's oxygen, 30% of the body's calories. Yep. I wanted to wait, but nobody else did.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what he just said, because I got the only microphone, is that 20 years ago you lifted something and had a muscle spasm.
Yeah.
Okay. Ignorant doctors will say it's the muscle. And they'll if the bad doctors, they'll say you bent wrong or lifted wrong or turned wrong. Okay. Except when you lift something, and you probably lifted something that heavy 1,000 times and never had a problem. So that's where you need a doctor that's a detective, not somebody that just says, oh, it's a muscle spasm, take a muscle relaxant. It's a muscle spasm, go to a massage therapist. That's there. The lack of critical thinking in the medical world is huge. Like when you're sitting, we have an exercise to always sit. If I catch anyone in here slouching, or if one of my doctors does, okay, yes, no one's looking at you, doc. Okay, yes, I am. Okay, no, you can't do that because that changes the brain function. If you want to mess up the brain, you slouch. You want to mess up the brain, you have to be symmetrical. You want to mess up the brain, you have blood that's in a stress state. So the blood for healthy joints and healthy brain is essential. So it's never, I lifted something wrong and my muscle spasmed out. It's really, why? Why? What was the factor? So you have to do a detective work, and that means taking an x-ray. And every joint is fluid filled. Now, water, and this has to do with the brain and all the joints, 1 to 2 liters a day. If you squeeze a little bit of lemon or lime or orange in there, you're going to help clean the blood filters, because if you're in a stressed state, that blood becomes thick. Thick blood or stressed blood means all of the joints desiccate or dry up. So, and that also means the brain's going to be in a stressed state. So if you're getting over medications, if you're getting over addictions, water, the solution to pollution is dilution. And then make sure that you're getting organic citrus, organic coffee. Coffee is like a vitamin to the thyroid. It's one of the greatest drugs you can get, but it's got to be organic. And look at the organic teas, essential. And nutrients, you only need 3: protein, fats, and carbohydrates. But if you're getting it in a stress state, if you're getting the toxic fats, your brain and joints can't function. This is why when you're looking at gout, this week we're talking about gout on YouTube. And you're going to find out it's not from a joint destruction or uric acid. It has to do with the body's inability to filter and to process nutrients. So this is why we always go back to the health of the blood when you're talking joints and brains. Then looking at detox, you've got 4 detox pathways: respiration, perspiration, bowel movements, and urination. So if you're perspiring every day, what's one of the exercises that we give on the cross crawl? We give breathing exercises. Every patient or every patient? Every patient. Okay, good. Just checking. I wanted to make sure that I was making that clear. So it is. And you're doing cross crawl and breathing, essential for brain function. So when you're getting over medication, when you're getting over opioid addiction, when you're getting over any kind of addiction, because all of these drugs, they have addictive qualities. Do you need to have healthy blood? Absolutely. So we do a check. Do you need to have huge amount of water? Absolutely. Do you need healthy fats, healthy proteins, carbohydrates? But it's movement that calms down that brain. Think of every genius in the world. If they were confronted with a problem, like Einstein, he would get his pipe and go for a walk. Sir Isaac Newton would go for a walk. All of these great thinkers throughout time would go for a walk. Why? Because that symmetrical stimulus calms down and energizes the brain. The brain is like a battery, and it gets its charge from the position and motion of the vertebrae. So this, the breathing, the sweating, the bowel function, 2 to 3 healthy bowel movements a day, urination, your urine's going to be a light yellow, so you're getting a healthy amount of water, and movement. Move every joint every day. This is what's going to regenerate that brain. But when you're looking at all of this, arthritis means joint inflammation. And inflammation is a healing process. So if you have any joint pain in the world, the way that we reverse the arthritic changes, and we do post x-rays within 2 weeks, where you can start to document the reversal of arthritis, the regeneration of the joints. You get around 100, 150 adjustments, you're going to literally see bone spurs start to go away because these joints are alive. Even in somebody 65 years old, my joints are only 7, 8 years old. So my joints are always regenerating. And how do I regenerate them? I regenerate them through correct symmetrical movement. I generate them through healthy blood, good water, appropriate nutrients, okay, good sleep, everything. So when you look at the 5 keys to health, it's the key. Now, one of the things on this sheet are a number of exercises. And you're going to see one of them is to get the curve back in your neck. And this is why we do a neck x-ray, because all the upper extremity, but the cardiac and respiratory center, so the breathing and heart have their nerve supply through the top of the neck. So if you have loss of curve of the neck or forward head carriage, and your brain is not going to function well. Okay, and this is why we get movements, we get seizures, we get people nervous, we get Parkinson's. All of that is the body moving the joints to try and get stimulus to the brain. And this is why one of the greatest exercise, and you'll see sitting with a foam roll, anybody that's slouching is putting an abnormal pressure on their entire system. Twisting exercise is fantastic, and this is hard to do, where you're literally locking down your hands, spreading your feet wider than shoulder width apart, and you turn as far as you can one side and as far as you can the other side. But you're going to be throwing your hands. So you're literally moving head, neck, and everything going one side and the other side. And if you do that and you get dizzy, that means that there's a problem with brains. And so this is why we recommend 100 of those a day. Walking symmetrically, barefoot. All of this movement of the joints directly affect the brain. Does that make sense? Now, any questions about movement, joint regeneration, and the brain? Was that interesting? Because this is how we regenerate the brain, through symmetrical movement. God bless you. Kapung Cup.